the Harvest Happy Hour. I'm Nate. I'm with Rain. We support entrepreneurs, people growing businesses here in Halsey and around the area. When I thought about this time of year, I thought, number one, harvests are a big deal, and so it's worth celebrating. And there's harvests going on all the time, but there's a big one, that's been going on, and so it's worth celebrating. I come from a farming family. Both my parents were potato and alfalfa farmers in Southern Oregon, so it means a lot to me. And it also strikes me that when we're trying to encourage people to be inspired to start businesses and to grow businesses, it helps to hear about the innovative stuff that's already happening in the community, right? So that whether you're growing a food business or you're growing an international seed business, I think those stories are really important to tell. So I simply wanted to invite some folks to tell a little bit about what innovation is going on in Halsey. So I went over and convinced DFL Bixie to come have somebody tell us 10 minutes about kind of some interesting, innovative things that are happening. Brian somehow got roped into it. Jeff, you roped him in?
Yeah, I guess I owe one.
Yeah, okay. So I'll turn it over to you, but again, I really appreciate the chance to host events where we also get to hear about not only like just getting started businesses, but businesses that are growing and again doing stuff like around the world. That's incredible. So I'd love to open it up to you and let you just share a few slides here. There's just this kind of button to the right too. And actually, before I start, we have the city manager and the mayor here. Would you like to say any words?
Pretty much already did. Welcome.
Yeah.
And thank you. Enjoy.
And I just wanted to say we would enjoy doing more things like this. This space is available when it's open to the whole community. Sometimes we'll let you use it for free. And just talk to me about that, and we'd like to understand more about our farming partners. So hoping to keep building that relationship, and thank you.
Cheers.
All right. So my name is Brian Jasko, and I am actually a true Oregonian. I've been involved in the seed industry here in the Willamette Valley since 1991. And I guess I've made a career out of playing the seed. Recently I've ironically joined DLF for this primary reason, in that they're the one company in the seed industry that I find to be truly innovative, and also very conscious of what our path forward is in regards to global challenges. So first, I'd like to start off with just a little bit of an overview of our company. We're based in Denmark. We are actually owned by a grower co-op, and that grower co-op has developed itself and now has basically presence on every continent globally. Kind of what our bread and butter has been over the years has been cool season grasses, both for turf and for forage. In Europe, we have a very large presence in the dairy industry here as well. And the flip side of that is a lot of the professional, whether it's NFL, Major League Baseball, soccer, a lot of those fields are planted with our genetics. We are the 7th largest seed company in the world, which is seems like we are growing consistently every year. And then finally, our core value is focused in research. So as an example, for turf side, we have a research facility over in Denmark that they have built a machine that mimics soccer cleats, and they'll run this thing up and down the field until they find a variety or a combination of genetics that works best. So
I do that for free.
yeah, you and the coach, right? So this is basically an overview of our footprint. shows what our focuses are regionally. We from Australia to North America. Oops. What did I do now? There we go. Yeah, so we recently, a couple years ago, purchased a large company down in Oceania, which we would consider to be Australia and New Zealand. A lot of that is forage-based, genetic research. And then, of course, up here we have Denmark. Oh, let's do it this way. Denmark, which would be our headquarters international. Some of our focuses, proteins, a lot of that is for animal growth, dairy, beef production. We get into quite a bit of what I would consider to be fairly high-tech agriculture, remote sensing, trying to maximize protein value of plants. Root growth is a big one for establishment, and always seems to be a challenge because not all of our customers are farmers. A lot of our customers are homeowners and what I would consider to be hobby farmers. So you always have a new set of challenges there with people who are not professionals at raising crops. Plant biology, that's a big one of my favorites. Over the course of time, we've managed to, in agricultural areas such as our Midwest, we've done a really good job of depleting soil biology, which is kind of the missing link right now between successful farming. We've backfilled that with chemicals, fertilizers, and so on. Our company's putting a lot more research there. Today I'm going to be focusing more on seed technologies because that's, as of recent, become a very large focus in PLF. So I want to designate the difference. Everybody's probably heard of seed treatments. Those are chemically based, and whether it's fighting a disease or a pest, what we're focused on is seed enhancements. And seed enhancements would be things that, in nature, successful germination and establishment of a seed would take place because of X, Y, and Z. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, X, Y, and Z aren't always present. So what we're trying to do is present the seed to the end user with those things, just add water. So it's an important designation because, where we're trying to get around things with chemicals and so on, a lot of times what you just need to start off with is a healthy plant. If you don't get that healthy start, your crop's going to be more vulnerable to pests and disease. Any questions on the designation between those two? Jeff, you look a little puzzled. You all right? So why now? Over the years, you wind the clock back 30, 40 years here in the Willamette Valley, and it was grass seed field after grass seed field and the supply. And so it truly was cheaper just to buy more seed and throw it down to compensate for what didn't grow. Now, since they quit making land and they kept making people, one of the challenges is, okay, so seed values the cost is increasing. But we haven't done a lot to increase the value of the seed. So whereas it might have been cheaper 20, 30 years ago to throw out another 10 pounds of seed, that's not the case today. And so we become more heavily reliant on the value of each and every seed as opposed to years past where you would just overseed to get what you were after. With what we're doing, and I'll explain it to you a little bit. We'll actually wrap the seed in a coating, and that coating consists of natural components like calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate, when it's ground very fine, has a very strong capillary action that'll pull water in towards the seed and hold it there. So gives it a lot better chance of establishing. Enhancement technologies, these are the three, I guess, innovative changes, since we're here to talk about nutrition. What kind of nutritional inputs can you put on a seed and have it be effective when that seed germinates? So there's been a lot of science about that over the past 10, 15 years, and a lot of success in that science as well. Biologicals, I started talking about those a bit earlier in regards to soil biology, what's lacking. There's things like azospirillum, mycorrhiza, and a bunch of other fancy words. But what that means is that's the missing link between breaking down nutrients that are in the soil and making them available to seed. Minus that soil biology, our soils of the nutrients are there. Plants can't access them because that method of breaking down those nutrients is no longer present. So if you think about seeding your yard with raw seed, nothing on it, and then think about seeding it with seed that's covered in soil biology, and this is dormant biology, so when it lands in the soil and it wets up with whether rain or irrigation, it breaks dormancy with those bugs and they begin to populate. We also include food for those bugs in our coating. So when one of those seeds lands in the soil, wets up and begins to activate, all those bugs immediately in the vicinity of that seed start producing nutrition for that plant. And that's a key component. The other thing, like I was visiting with Nate on earlier, is equipment. So what this has done is not only driven chemical companies to start buying biological companies, and also plant nutrition companies to start being more innovative in terms of directly accessible nutrients. But you know, I started coating seed back in 1991, and back then we had an industrial bread mixer, you know, to do this, and people were using Dr. Pepper syrup to get it to stick to the seed. So nothing was made to do this. Now there's an entire industry to support it. So big shift and change in terms of how we're viewing the value of each and every seed produced. And honestly, we hope globally that takes effect, because there's only so much land, most of it we need to produce food, right? So if we can circumvent that and increase the level of success for every pound of seed we plant, it's a win-win. So some of the differences, if you look at the yellow triangle here, that would be a raw seed put out there. In terms of time to establish, and this is the coated version. Now a coated seed is going to take another day or two to germinate, but once it does germinate and it has all those goodies right in the root zone, it's going to take off. This poor little fellow over here struggles for nutrition, moisture availability, things of that nature. Plant density, these are some trials done over in Europe, and what they did was basically took 500 seeds of raw seed and then equal amount of coated seed and determined what the plant density was after several weeks. And it was quite a striking difference. A lot of that coverage was based on the health of the plant, not necessarily how many of them germinated. So, yeah, in terms of capturing value, we've seen a tremendous response in terms of, you know, you can even take the same, for example, 50 pounds of raw seed is all seed. If you take 50 pounds of coated seed, it's really only 25 pounds of seed. but that 25 pounds of seed is out competing the 50. And if you think about that in terms of how many acres does it take to produce that 50, produce a crop?
Mm-hmm.
And if you could cut that in half, what does that do? I mean, it's more food growing acres, right?
Transportation too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This was another part of that study where we looked at root development. What are we doing in terms, because root development, that's the heartbeat of the plant, right? The stomach, the heartbeat, the whole thing. With every different species on down the line, we saw much better root development with the products that were enhanced with coating. Going too fast here?
No,
Any
it's great.
questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you mentioned the value of each seed increasing.
Yep.
I know there's 2 seed labs in town, which is not something I ever thought about before I lived here.
Yeah.
Do you test your own seed? Do you have an outside company do it? Do you do both?
We use a lot of outside companies. Over in Europe, our company is very intense about testing their own products, and that's where a lot of the genetic development happens, and they don't do any of that kind of testing in these labs. But yeah, we're familiar with both Hendricks and Lynn, and good labs. We've worked with Rachel for quite some time, actually.
Yeah, I got to visit her a couple months ago and tour. It's a pretty intense operation. I had no idea until I went in there. It's a neat environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to watch how they separate on board.
Yeah.
Several years ago, it was half that.
Yeah.
So she's done a really good job of growing her business.
In fact, we invited her to speak, and she said, "I'm just too busy."
Yeah.
on Friday evening,
She would be
but-
right now.
Well, yeah.
It's incredible.
I mean, we just harvested, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's.
they're all buried.
Yeah, yeah, which is good. It's
Yeah.
good, yeah.
So one of the other things that we get from these coatings or enhancements is moisture management. I mentioned the advantages of the calcium carbonate, putting that on the seed to have a quick moisture in. There's also some very innovative starch-based super absorbents, and if you think of it, think of a diaper. How much? I hope you all have kids, 'cause this gets real basic here.
I've got one potty training right now.
Those will hold an incredible amount of moisture.
Thank goodness, yeah.
So, but most of those are petroleum based, and the tendency for those petroleum products to break down, it takes a while. The starch based super absorbents will rehydrate about 3 or 4 times, and then they deplete themselves in the soil naturally. But this is kind of an expression of that. Can you all see the difference in the color here?
Yeah.
So this, and these are wheat seeds. These bladder papers were soaked with the same amount of water, and then we just rested the seed right on top of it. If you notice the radical on these compared to the radical on these, it's quite a tremendous difference. Now if you look at the color of the paper, it's pretty clear that these guys have soaked up all the water, and that's what they're using to their advantage. So, yeah, if we can, really, it comes down to placing value on every seed.
Welcome.
So, of the things that we're trying to accomplish with these coatings, and the products that we put into them, there's a number of, we're looking for nutritional support. As soon as that thing germinates, it's gonna need food, and we want that food to be there based on our coatings, and we want our coatings to help establish that food or nutritional base moving forward through biology. Strength of establishment, I think, that previous slide shows how we can get a really good head start with the baby plants, seedlings. Shelf life. So seeds are biological organisms, and they don't live forever under any kind of condition. The crops that we raise around here are usually good for 2 to 3 years, and then they start dying off pretty heavily. encapsulating these seeds, holds and in some cases prolongs that shelf life. The other thing is, we talked about root development. You guys saw how on all those enhanced products, the root development was significantly better than that of a raw product. Good to see you again.
Finally figured out who I was.
Huh?
Finally figured out who I was?
Well, yeah, know the audience, right? So that has a long-term effect, and if you think about a crop like alfalfa that has been enhanced for a lot of years now, alfalfa is one of those crops that you continue to harvest through the season. So you might take your first cutting in early June or late May, and the plant has to regenerate. Well, the more of a root base those crops have, the quicker they're going to regenerate. And you might be harvesting for hay, silage, or you might be grazing it. In any of those scenarios, you're going to have a much healthier and much faster rebound from the plant to establish more nutrition. Plantability, calcium carbonate's pretty heavy stuff. So if you think of a cubic foot of grass seed, that's going to be anywhere from 25 to 35 pounds. A cubic foot of enhanced grass seed is probably going to be closer to 55 or 60. So when you put it in a spreader and shoot it out, that real light fluffy seed sometimes will rest up on top of the soil or whatever plant life may be existing. The heavier enhanced seeds are going to hit and drop and find soil contact, and soil contact is going to be crucial for establishment and germination. No problem. One of the other benefits is, we talked about seed to plant conversion. If it would be common for 50% of the seeds that you plant to die, to never germinate, never establish as a plant. We can impact that by 30 to 40%. And again, you go back to looking at how many acres it takes to produce that seed, those are very, very significant numbers. And then we just talked about the improved moisture and nutrients.
I have a question.
Fire away.
What about keeping the birds from eating the seed?
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Come back next year.
So it has been a bit of a pest deterrent to have that calcium carbonate encapsulation, but I will tell you a funny story, that wheat trial that I showed you here. So the guy that I was working with on this was from UW, and he asked for a very bright pink coating on his seed because he thought that would be a good deterrent for bird predation, which was. But the freaking ants in that field loved that red, and so he sent me a video of all these ants actually gathering these pink seeds and stuffing them down into a hole. It was bizarre. So that's a work in progress.
So one problem create another.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a perfect science yet. Any more questions?
I just think it's amazing that I hear a ton about, I work in water, it's kind of a side thing that I do, and the amount of discussion about how to help, plants be more hardy, get more roots, given drought and given pressures related to water consumption in the Southwest is enormous. So I just feel like this work is right on the front lines of that real need out there. So that's awesome. It makes me excited just how relevant this work is to some major challenges that we have to try to overcome. So
Yeah, and we've kind of talked about this today as a fairly narrow niche, so to speak, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. Carbon banding is a process that was used here in the valley for years and years, and what that basically was is they would lay a strip of carbon down, put the seed in on top of it, and that was supposed to protect the seed from pesticides and so on and so forth, as well as give it some biological advantage. Well, we've done some work with actually taking forest fire products where you have burnout trees with all this black carbon on it. And there's a company that will go around and actually incinerate that stuff to generate this carbon. And we've used that for seed coating in the past. It's an incredible mess, but it's also effective. So there's a lot going on. If you look at row cropping now, corn, soybeans, wheat, most all of that is still primarily chemical. We're still substituting for what nature had in there to begin with by way of chemical, and a lot of that is disease and pest protection. And then down the line, post-germination, of course, it's going to be urea or other, nitrogen sources. So what we're trying to do is kind of circumvent that whole chemical piece, establish healthier plants, and get back to what nature ultimately intended.
That's very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you. So outside, Duke, we have Nuestro Sabor is outside. I'm going to get one of the pupusas here. Please support them. Tipsy Tap Trailer is also a local company. They're serving outside. We got a local face painter. So thanks for being here. Have a good time. Thank you again for the presentation. I learned a ton. I'm like super excited about what's going on. So that's perfect. Thanks everybody for being here. And yeah,
Thank you.
keep in touch.
Thank
All right.
you.